Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Friday, 30th May 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. United States. The U.S. inflation rate has cooled, showing minimal effects from earlier tariffs, while American incomes have seen growth. However, a federal court initially blocked most of President Trump's tariffs on foreign imports, providing temporary relief to U.S. businesses before an appeals court temporarily reinstated the tariffs, creating market volatility. The U.S. Justice Department sought to dismiss a criminal fraud charge against Boeing and cancel the trial connected to the two plane crashes that resulted in 346 deaths. The Trump administration has reversed its earlier decision to terminate leases for 34 offices within the Mine Safety and Health Administration. The SEC has dropped its lawsuit against crypto giant Binance and its founder, Zhao, with a stipulation preventing the SEC from refiling the case. The U.S. is reportedly considering a plan for deportations to Rwanda and is contemplating a dig approach to deep-sea mining. Wall Street is concerned that a foreign tax provision in the budget bill may diminish the appeal of U.S. assets. U.S.-China relations. Economic tensions between the U.S. and China are intensifying, fueled by tariffs and extending into areas of advanced technology. American retail giants are reportedly demanding that Chinese suppliers cover 66% of the U.S. import duty costs amidst the ongoing U.S.-China trade conflict, which is impacting business profitability. Hong Kong stocks experienced a downturn after a U.S. court upheld President Trump's reciprocal tariff, exacerbating trade tensions between the two nations. Global investors are re-evaluating their portfolios, which are heavily weighted toward the U.S., and are exploring undervalued equities in Hong Kong and mainland China, influenced by geopolitical consideration. A Chinese economist has warned that financial sanctions could emerge as a new arena of conflict in the U.S.-China rivalry. Trade discussions between the U.S. and China have stalled amid escalating tensions related to student visas and arms sales. Besant suggests the U.S.-China trade talks are stalled, advocating for a direct conversation between Trump and the WHAM. These heightened tensions are impacting Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq futures as investors await crucial PCE inflation data. The S&P 500 saw an increase following strong earnings from Nvidia, but gains were limited by uncertainty surrounding trade policies. Australia. Australian Prime Minister Albanese is facing what may be the greatest challenge to his balancing act so far. The U.S. is respectfully encouraging Australia to increase its defense spending. Unexpectedly, Australian retail sales have declined, leading to increased expectations of further cuts by the Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA. Australian shares experienced a dip, primarily due to the performance of mining and energy stocks, which was further exacerbated by U.S. tariff concerns. Commonwealth Bank of Australia, CBA. Customers experienced a transfer glitch, while the Australian Securities Exchange, ASX, remained relatively flat due to news regarding U.S. tariffs. Despite initial jitters, Australian shares saw a slight increase amid renewed U.S.-China tensions and ultimately ended the month on a positive note. Superannuation funds are recovering after a strong month of performance. Australia's credit growth has surged, potentially providing a boost to the stock market. Australia's housing credit has also surged, further boosting market hopes. The Canadian Securities Exchange is reportedly making inroads into the Australian market. Australia's retail sales slump has notable implications for the stock market. Australia's private sector credit surge similarly boosts market hope. Others. Metal stocks, including Vedanta, Hindalco, and Jindal Steel, experienced selling pressure due to concerns related to tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump and the trade agreement with China. Victoria's Secret has taken down its US website and announced that some in-store services will be temporarily unavailable due to an unspecified security incident. James Hardie's substantial compensation package for executives associated with its U.S. target was noted. At the UN, the U.S. asserted that Russia's Putin should agree to a ceasefire deal in Ukraine. India's economy is showing strong signs of growth, with a faster-than-expected expansion of 7.4% in the March quarter. This contributes to a full-year growth estimate of 6.5%, with the fiscal deficit for 25 projected at 4.8% of GDP. Ashish Kumar Chauhan, and CEO of NSE, credits the IT sector and the National Stock Exchange for fueling this growth. The NSE's valuation has surged 60% to $58 billion ahead of its IPO nod, even as foreign investors increase bets that the India stock market rally may stall. April saw over 10 lakh new investors entering the Indian stock markets, as the Nifty 50 rose by 5%, meaning approximately 1 in 5 Indian households now has direct exposure to stock markets. Despite overall growth, the Indian stock market experienced volatility, with the Sensex closing 180 points lower at 80,1451.01 and the Nifty 50 settling at 24,750.7, down 83 points on the last trading session of May. Still, both indices gained over 1.5% in May, marking the Nifty's third consecutive month of gains, rising nearly 2%. Several stocks are being highlighted as potential monsoon stock picks, including Bayer CropScience, Canara Bank, Coromandel International, Imami, Godrej Agrovet, Hero Motocorp, Supreme Industries, and Swaraj Engines. Navratna PSU Engineers India shares gained almost 10% amid a weak Indian stock market. SME Agro stock Krishival Foods also experienced a gain of 3% on the NSE. In the corporate sector, Jio BlackRock secured approval to start a mutual fund business in India. Indian Pay firm multiples secured private debt from HSBC and Nomura. Q Media is offloading its linear channel QTV to focus on a digital-first future, while KPMG is entering the Indian market with a premium product launch. Auto stocks are outperforming peers due to a positive domestic demand outlook, and Shapoorji closed a $3 billion, 40 billion private credit deal. India is also adjusting its investment policies, exempting Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PF, from a 10% investment cap to encourage greater capital inflows, potentially impacting Jio and Reliance Retail. India hopes that this move will boost capital inflows into the country. Despite discounted prices, India's Russian oil imports reached a 10-month high in May, as Moscow's crude oil remains sanction-proof. Bollywood actor Arshad Warsi, his wife Maria Goretti, and 57 others have been barred by SEBI from accessing the Indian equity market for up to 5 years due to stock manipulation. The bullish trend seen in the shares of Avik Chengdu Aircraft, the maker of the J-10 fighter jet, has declined, with the stock tumbling 20% from its May peak following the India-Pakistan conflict. Turning our attention to the United States, a lavish Indian barat in Manhattan shut down the financial district for a Wall Street wedding. United States President Trump has accused China of violating their preliminary trade agreement. He hinted at a return to a more confrontational approach, potentially derailing trade negotiations after a brief detente. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent noted that U.S.-China trade talks are a bit stalled, calling for direct communication between the leaders. The Trump administration is considering export controls and student visa revocations. New restrictions target aerospace technology exports, specifically impacting China's 919 jet program. These non-tariff measures could negatively affect investor sentiment. The U.S. tariffs also impact industries like sports car manufacturers, already facing challenges from China and a slump in electric car demand. Synopsys is evaluating the impact of the new export restrictions, having already experienced a slowdown in China. Despite these trade tensions, China's electric car market is becoming increasingly competitive. This affects both the domestic economy and the global auto market. The Chinese AI startup DeepSeek announced its upgraded Ron reasoning model has matched the performance of OpenAI and Google. E-commerce giant JD.com has become a shareholder in Agibot, a robotics company backed by Tencent Holdings. China's stock market closed the week with losses due to renewed trade concerns with the US and uncertainty about tariffs. Stocks in China and Hong Kong fell, particularly affecting automakers. JP Morgan noted that global investors are increasingly investing in China's technology and energy leaders for diversification. Russia is actively involved in international and domestic affairs. In the ongoing conflict with Ukraine, the Kremlin foresees ceasefire talks in Istanbul, maintaining its existing delegation. Russia has suggested Istanbul as a potential venue for future discussions with Ukraine, while Ukraine insists on concrete peace proposals before resuming negotiations. Recent reports indicate that Russia received 9 million artillery shells from North Korea. In exchange, Russia provided North Korea with a mobile air defense system, prompting accusations from the US and its allies of violating UN sanctions. Russia has also accused its ally Serbia of betrayal due to Serbian arms exports to Ukraine, with Russian intelligence alleging that Serbian firms committed a stab in the back. In a separate incident, an explosion resulted in the death of a Russian veteran who had commanded airstrikes on a Ukrainian port city. Economically, the Russian ruble has strengthened, surpassing 78 against the dollar to reach a two-year high. Russian airlines reported a 2.7% year-on-year increase in passenger traffic in April. Russian banks also saw a 7% month-over-month rise in net profit in April, according to the central bank. However, a Russian minister cautioned that the cooling economy is vulnerable to hypothermia risks. Following comments made by Trump about Putin, the Russian stock market experienced a $1 billion reduction in value. Russia has also introduced cryptocurrency derivatives for qualified investors. Share prices across several sectors, including metallurgy, mining, retail, consumer goods, oil, and gas, were recorded on the MOEX Moscow exchange on May 30, 2025. Regarding international relations beyond Ukraine, Moscow has reiterated its interest in revitalizing the Russia-India-China Troika format. Putin expressed admiration for the late Japanese PM Abe, acknowledging Abe's desire to establish a peace treaty between Russia and Japan. Domestically, the former manager of Russia's infamous troll factory has been sentenced to 10 years in prison. Turning to the United Kingdom, a Russian captain of a cargo ship has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter in connection with a North Sea collision involving a U.S. tanker and will be tried in the UK. In January, in North Korea, the U.S. and its allies have condemned both North Korea and Russia for allegedly violating UN sanctions through military agreements. This follows reports that North Korea sent 9 million artillery shells to Russia, and Moscow provided it with a mobile air defense system. Saudi Arabia is strategically navigating financial and technological expansions amidst fluctuating oil revenues. The kingdom's sovereign wealth fund is weighing an IPO for its tech division and has initiated a $10 billion venture capital fund to enhance artificial intelligence capabilities. NVIDIA is in direct talks with the Saudi government to broaden its influence, circumventing traditional reliance on big tech companies. To reinforce its financial infrastructure, BNI Mellon has secured a regional headquarters license, while India intends to exempt the Saudi fund from foreign portfolio investment regulations. Hong Kong is also actively fostering closer financial relationships with Saudi Arabia, anticipating increased cross-border financial activities. Despite these advancements, the Saudi government is re-evaluating spending priorities due to declining oil prices, which the finance minister sees as an opportunity to improve investment approaches without worrying about the growing deficit ratio. In renewable energy, a 300 MW solar project has reached financial close. The dermatological drugs market is projected to reach nearly $500 million by 2030. Regarding governance, 120 government employees were apprehended for alleged bribery and exploitation of their positions. Vex Robotics and REFF are collaborating with the Saudi Federation to promote STEM education. Historical tariffs and strategic actions by Saudi Arabia present obstacles to America's energy transformation. South Africa's stock market hit a record high, driven by gains in China's Tencent. The rand saw initial gains before declining. The central bank lowered the lending rate, which a deputy believes has brought rates to a neutral zone. Bloomberg.com credits Kaganyaga's actions with contributing to strong bond returns. Dischem Pharmacies reported increased annual profit and issued a final dividend. Spa plans to divest its Swiss and UK retail operations. DP World launched a platform to streamline carmaker entry into South Africa. Everest Wealth was acknowledged for its sustainable growth and private equity initiatives. Joburg is working to become a smart African city using technology. Young South Africans are participating in the JC Investment Challenge. In a criminal case, a South African mother received a life sentence for trafficking her 6-year-old daughter. A new book examines the lives of young men on the urban fringes of South Africa over a decade. Japan's economy presents a complex picture, with Tokyo's core inflation hitting a 2-year peak, potentially leading to interest rate increases. Retail sales have surged, marking the best growth in 3 months, even as factory output contraction has lessened. Industrial output, however, fell by 0.9% in April, ending a 2-month growth streak. Nippon Steel is set to invest $6 billion in its domestic mills. Trade relations with China could improve as Japan expects the lifting of the seafood ban, implemented in August 2023, after the Fukushima wastewater release. Former Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba has urged caution regarding tariff escalations and pledged to broaden the Asia-Pacific trade group. The Nikkei stock index declined amidst court-related concerns about U.S. tariffs. Pacific Bridge Media and Consulting Japan and Business Next Media Taiwan are collaborating on a content exchange showcasing Asian innovation. Across the Pacific in the United States, Donald Trump is holding a rally in Pennsylvania to promote the Nippon Steel investment in U.S. steel. Trump's visit to Pittsburgh is planned to further commemorate the partnership between U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel. Germany's inflation rate dipped to 2.1% in May, surpassing the anticipated 2% mark. The DAX index soared to record levels, fueled by hopes for upcoming trade negotiations between the U.S. and the EU. Infrastructure development is now a key governmental priority, with the intention of attracting private investment. Amidst discussions about repatriating gold reserves from the United States due to apprehensions about potential actions by Donald Trump, Germany is weighing the implementation of a new digital tax, which should provoke a response from the U.S. Additionally, the Trump administration has been viewed by some as sympathetic to the far-right AfD party in Germany. United Kingdom's stock market saw a seesaw performance, opening with gains before succumbing to fiscal worries. The British pound also weakened, dipping below the $1.35 mark. In banking, HSBC is spearheading an effort among financial institutions to ease the UK's ring-fencing regulations. Expanding its reach, Japan's Dai-ichi Life is poised to purchase a 15% share in the UK's M&G through a collaborative agreement. Shifting to energy, the UK Energy Minister recently visited the Invinity Bathgate factory. The situation between Ukraine and Russia remains tense, with reports indicating that Putin has positioned 50,000 troops along Ukraine's northern border. Ukraine has announced a need for €500 million to repair vital port infrastructure damaged during the conflict with Russia. Former US President Trump has issued a warning to Putin, stating he's playing with fire in light of the recent large-scale drone attack. Further, Trump has indicated his willingness to hold meetings with both the Russian and Ukrainian heads of state. The European Central Bank's Panetta has voiced concerns that financial setbacks in the cryptocurrency sector could erode trust in traditional banking institutions. Canada's economic outlook remains nuanced as TSX futures show little movement before the country's GDP data release. Recent trading saw Canadian stocks dip, pulling the S&P TSX Composite Index down by 0.28%. Investment analysts are advising close monitoring of select stocks, particularly dividend-yielding ones. Trade dynamics have shifted, with Canada's tariff revenues increasing noticeably due to retaliatory tariffs enacted in response to levies imposed during the Trump administration. Security remains a key area, with Canada reinforcing its military alliance with the United States and maintaining its defense of the Golden Dome. European markets saw mixed performance as U.S. tariff uncertainties rippled through trading. Early market gains, spurred by temporary tariff reinstatements, diminished after President Trump voiced criticism regarding China's trade practices. The fluctuating tariff landscape, intensified by a court blocking the tariffs, contributed to a general easing of European shares. While benchmarks largely increased, Asian markets faced downturns due to the same tariff-related anxieties. Aurelian Amplifon saw significant gains even as the market slipped. Bank of America analysts posited that the tariff situation could present advantageous opportunities for specific industries. The court decision to halt U.S. tariffs ultimately helped bolster European markets. South Korea's economic landscape reveals a complex picture of growth and challenges. Apartment prices edged up nationally by 0.08%, although regional disparities persist. The number of unsold homes has climbed to 26,422, reflecting a slowdown in housing sales. KB Financial has ascended into the ranks of the top 5 companies by market capitalization. The Busan Digital Asset Exchange is partnering with Hashed and Naver Pay to create a Web3 wallet for Busan, indicating forward movement in digital assets. Entertainment giant HYBE, famed for managing BTS, is betting on a possible K-pop resurgence in China with a new office. Pinkfong, the company behind Baby Shark, has filed for an IPO in South Korea. The EU Good Food Programme has officially launched in Korea, promoting European food products. Japan grappled with rising inflation figures this week, contributing to market unease. The Nikkei index experienced fluctuations amid concerns about the potential impact of US tariffs on Japanese exports. Corporate earnings reports added another layer of complexity, with some companies exceeding expectations while others fell short. Turning to China, economic data releases painted a mixed picture of the nation's recovery. Trade figures revealed both strengths and weaknesses in different sectors. Investors remained cautious, closely monitoring government policies and their potential effects on key industries. Real estate sector concerns continued to weigh on market sentiment. In South Korea, technology stocks faced headwinds amid global demand concerns. The Kospi index mirrored regional volatility, with investors reacting to both international and domestic economic cues. Export data remained a key indicator for the trade-dependent nation. Australia's market showed resilience despite global uncertainties. Strong commodity prices provided support, particularly for mining companies. The Australian dollar's performance also influenced investor sentiment. The Reserve Bank of Australia's monetary policy decisions were closely watched for their potential impact on the economy. Taiwan is set to receive increased arms sales from the United States, exceeding levels seen during the Trump administration's initial years. This development occurs as China intensifies military pressure on the island nation. Simultaneously, Taiwan is actively pursuing a trade agreement with the U.S., even after a recent court decision. The Taiwan stock market is currently experiencing effects from MSI rebalancing activities. Turning to the financial sector, Barclays analysts maintain a positive stance on Taiwan Semiconductor (TSM). They foresee potential opportunities for growth, despite existing challenges in the market, although the target price has been adjusted downward to $215. Singapore is becoming a pivotal hub for renewable energy and carbon management. The country has greenlit the import of 1 gigawatt of solar power from Indonesia. Major oil firms are actively seeking bids to transport captured carbon to Singapore, highlighting its carbon capture and storage ambition. Strengthening diplomatic ties, France and Singapore formalized an agreement during President Macron's Southeast Asia tour, solidifying bilateral cooperation. Asia Tech X Singapore, hosted in Singapore, served as a platform for Black Sesame Technologies, a Taiwanese robotics firm, to display its latest innovations. Vietnam is deepening its development ties with Switzerland, marking 35 years of collaborative effort. Simultaneously, in sporting news, Bangladesh finds itself grouped with Vietnam, Yemen, and Singapore in Group C. Amidst rising tensions, Serbia is now under scrutiny, following allegations from a Russian spy agency that it has been covertly supplying weapons to Ukraine. This development has been described as a stab in the back for Russia by Alpha Press, highlighting the severity of the accusation. Responding to these serious claims, Serbia has launched a formal investigation into the alleged arms shipments to Ukraine, seeking to address the concerns raised by Russia. United States saw a surge in multiple job holders, with over 8.9 million people holding more than one job in March. This is the highest that number has been since 1994, reflecting potential economic pressures or changing employment trends. Greenland is anticipating a tourism boom, thanks to newly established direct flights from the United States. The increased accessibility is expected to draw a larger influx of visitors to the country, which has not traditionally been a popular tourist hotspot. Malaysia saw a former Goldman Sachs banker sentenced to 2 years in federal prison for his role in a $4.50 billion fraud related to a Malaysian state investment fund, while the state government aims to implement a durian tracking system to combat fraud. The focus then shifts to Mexico, where questions are being asked about whether Claudia Sheinbaum could be an agent of change for the country. Turning to the United States, a federal appeals court has sided with Native American tribes against the federal government concerning a $10 billion energy transmission line project linking New Mexico and California. Meanwhile, in Cambodia, Cambodian American chefs are finding increased recognition and promoting their culture, although Cambodian restaurants remain less common than Chinese or Japanese ones. Shifting focus to Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, Asaduddin Owaisi has urged Saudi Arabia to support Pakistan's efforts to be removed from the Financial Action Task Force (FATF) grey list. In developments between New Zealand and India, New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister has announced a breakthrough in trade negotiations with India, although a firm timeline for a trade agreement is still to be determined. Brazil's economy continues to demonstrate strong growth, with risky assets rising for the third consecutive month, despite persistently high interest rates. Switzerland, known for its natural beauty, is promoting its unique summer getaways, including alpine adventures. The African Development Bank Group has elected Mauritanian economist Sidi Ouattara as its 9th president. Moving to the Middle East, Israel has agreed to a Gaza deal to restore aid, although Hamas remains wary of the agreement. Poland's economy, previously strong, is now facing headwinds. Italy is seeing innovation in succession practices among its family-owned businesses. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, a flooded mine is posing a potential threat to the global copper supply. France benefits economically from hosting the Roland Garros tennis tournament. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.